Good morning, welcome everybody. Welcome to our webinar today in partnership with Dubba. So it's the conundrum of the day. It's the wordplay of the day. Solving the remote workforce compliance conundrum. I'm sure they put these words in to challenge me with voice data intelligence. So we're going to be talking around the work we do with Dubba and how recording and is important in the workplace now, especially as we've changed the way that we work and remote working has become more of a standard now for businesses as we move forward. So it's not just about recording, it's about how we use that information. It's how we are fully compliant, and working with Dubba, we're going to talk about how we solve that challenge that many businesses face today. So I'm Barry Ward. I'm the product director over at Wavenet. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to what's going on today, a bit about Wavenet, a bit about the partnership with Dubba. I'm going to hand over to people far more intelligent than myself to take you through Dubba and the really great products and services and the solutions that they have. And then at the end, we'll have a question and answer session. So if you've got any questions to pose, please put them into the chat. We'll pick them up at the end. And we'll have a sort of 10-15 minute Q&A at the end of the session. So hopefully everyone's enjoying the sunshine, and we won't keep you for too long. So let's crack on. So let me start with talking about our partnership with Dubba and Wavenet itself. So Wavenet, as you can see here, we communication provider. We'll talk a bit more about the customers that we look after at the moment. But I think what's important to start off with are the partners that we work with as an organisation. So you can see down at the bottom, we've got Cisco, we've got Mitel, you've got Microsoft and Silver Peak and that sort of stuff. And I'm sure pretty much everyone's heard of these as tier one partners. And we have to select the partners that we're going to take to market with us because we have a very strong brand and a great product stack. And our partner relationships are very important. If you look at our Trustpilot score down at the bottom, we've got 5 stars and an NPS score of 88, which is pretty unheard of in the industry. So working with partners is absolutely key. And working with Dubba, we've worked with them for several years now. And when we started to look at interaction recordings and how do we drive this forwards, Dubba was, top of our list. We as a company have a range of values. So we've got trust in there, easy to do business, a market leader in cloud solutions, and we make business brilliant. There are values at Wavenet. And actually, when we went out to market to look at partners out there, Dubba ticked all of those boxes. So the relationship has been very strong. We started working with them through our Cisco relationship, and then as we moved on to the Microsoft relationship around Teams calling, which we'll talk about later on, their products and services and their reach is absolutely huge. So very quickly, a bit about Wavenet, about 60 million turnover in 2020. That's increasing. We are private equity backed. We're a growing organisation in the UK predominantly. We've got about 250 really passionate employees, a lot of technical people here, 100 trained engineers across our product base. And we service sort of 8,000 customers. I think that's probably near 9,000 now, to be fair. And we've got some pretty big names that hopefully you'll recognise sitting in here. So you've got people like Dyson, those people that make those Hoovers and cool technology. We recently won the DVLA, so it'll be when you ring in the DVLA, you'll be talking to a contact center solution provided by us, and some other big names on there as well. And hopefully that just gives you a flavour for the sort of companies that we work with. In terms of what we're talking about today, the remote working and compliance conundrum, we know that COVID changed rapidly everybody's way of working last year. People were working from home, but it wasn't kind of the norm. That's now flipped on its head. Teams uptake, and we're talking specifically about Microsoft Teams to TeamsLink today. Last month Microsoft published their figures that said they've got about 250 million monthly users across Teams, and 80 million of those are using voice. So that's great, and it's a great emerging technology, and we're taking advantage of that as Wavenet, as our product stack. But actually, how do you make home workers compliant? How do you make remote workers compliant? How do you make people using Teams and the new collaboration technologies that are out there compliant as well? And that's why we started to look at how we can work with Dubba. So I'm pretty pleased to announce we've got Matt Ludlow talking to us today from Dubba. He's the Senior Alliances Director for EMEA. And we've got Patrick Rankine as well. So he's the Senior Consulting Architect at Dubba. And they're going to take you through Dubba, the solutions that they've got, and how they can improve your business. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Matt, if you're there.
Hello, everybody. My name's Matt Ludlow. I am the Senior Alliances Director across EMEA for Dubba. I'm actually standing in for the Dubba account manager today that looks after Wavenet. He is off on holiday, the lucky thing. So I'm very jealous and very annoyed that he's made me step in, but I'm very glad to be presenting to you today either way. So as Barry has said, we will be talking about the Conundrum, which is the remote workforce compliance conundrum, or solving it. Really, I guess, around how Dubba underpins that message, not only just for Wavenet, but for you guys, and how that really works in the market. So I've got a couple of slides just to talk about some really high level statistics. So recently Gartner released some information around how many conversations will be recorded by 2025. Now, today we see anywhere between 10 and 30% of customers within our partners recording calls, subject to kind of how they're deploying telephony across their enterprise. But there's going to be a huge growth spurt for recording of conversations, whether that be voice conversations and chats, video is really starting to grow now. 75% of conversations by 2025 will be recorded, and really to underpin that, the scale of Dubba, we can record from one extension all the way up to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of extensions across multiple locations, multiple platforms in the same portal. So we really are a partner of choice for partners like Wavenet. So a few more statistics. Voice for me is when a conversation gets important and the situation is an issue, there's an issue, or I need to speak about something important. Voice is my primary method of communication. I'm 32, so I guess my generation is very much the same. I know the much younger generation are very lent towards chat and not having to pick up the phone. And I know kind of my mom's generation and my dad's generation, they very much pick up the phone. It's much easier than trying to get their head around email or chat or whatever it might be. So 50% of conversations we've seen happen outside of the contact center in a financial institution. So that could be collaboration tools such as Microsoft Teams, which we'll touch on today, other communication platforms such as Zoom or Ring Central. There are lots of those cloud platforms out there. So a lot of the conversations, half of the conversations even, are happening outside of the contact center, where most businesses think the majority of their conversations happen. So that's really interesting when we talk about collaboration capture and when we talk about the capture of platforms such as Microsoft Teams. 80% of crucial customer conversations are voice, and some of those started with a chat, and then with the contact center platforms, they launch into a call because the conversation is a bit more detailed and a bit more requiring of a voice conversation. You can see there 10% of crucial conversations are captured. So we see 10 to 30%, but 10% is a really good stake in the ground. I guess financial services organisations do, but we're starting to see that broadly across banks. So there have been a few announcements recently that some of the larger tier 1 banks are allowing their staff to work from home. I think Google have announced it. There have been lots and lots of announcements of late, I think really driven by the pandemic. but more so flexible working is becoming a thing of the present day, not a thing of the future. So that really is underpinned again by Dubba being able to capture all of those platforms. And to talk about TeamsLink, I am going to hand over to Barry.
Great, cheers, Matt. Yeah, so I think that those stats are pretty revealing in terms of the changing way of communications that are happening out there. And as I said earlier on, we've seen a huge shift during the last year to remote working during COVID, and actually a change in technology as well. And we're really proud at Wavenet to have a platform called TeamsLink. And what TeamsLink allows people to do is to connect Microsoft Teams, which they're using for their collaboration, their internal chat, their meetings, and actually connect it to the outside world to either replace or enhance their existing phone system. And TeamsLink is a platform that we've built and is growing pretty much exponentially at the moment. We're putting on thousands of new users onto this voice platform every month. And what we found was, that one of the benefits that we have with TeamsLink is we put additional features and functions over what's available in Microsoft. So, you've heard of, I'm sure people have heard of direct routing. I'm sure people have heard the calling plans from Microsoft. We've taken all that good stuff and then put an extra layer over the top. And what we found during last year was, as people started to work more flexibly and remotely, we needed to integrate a recording partner, an interaction recording partner that would give us the flexibility and scale that we needed. So can we record these recordings all over the world and store them globally? Can we put everything into the cloud? Sitting there, so customers don't have to worry about storage. Can we make the recordings actionable? So can we put statistics over them? How do people use this information out there to enhance what we're doing? We can plug voice in and out and you can make a phone call, that's great, but how do we really add value to make this a really fantastic solution for our customers? And that's where we've started to work with Dubba. So by integrating Dubba into our TeamsLink platform, not only can you turn Teams into your voice replacement to make and receive calls externally and chat externally and have meetings, we've now got Dubba integrated into this to give you all of the great features and functions that I'm sure Matt's going to talk to you about at the moment. And I think what's really exciting are some of the new enhancements that are coming up, and I'm sure you'll see that with Patrick and Matt later on. So that's a bit about TeamsLink. If you want to know more about TeamsLink, we happy to set up a call about that and how we can integrate that into your business on there. So that's great. But I'm going to hand back to Matt now just to talk a bit more about Dubba and how that fits in.
Thanks, Barry. Bit of an education session for myself there as well. I understand kind of direct routing, but TeamsLink is obviously providing an overlay service that's a bit more of a wraparound. It sounds like a really good product. So Dubba, I guess, why Dubba? Who are Dubba? Those are some of the questions that hopefully I'll be able to answer for you today. But voice data and AI really does start with Dubba. Simplicity of capture. So the integration is pre-built. The more legacy recording vendors, some of which I've worked for, they have a challenge in deploying integrations. Because of the way that legacy technology works, it's on premise. It requires physical tin in a lot of examples. So being integrated into the service provider with either Microsoft Teams, with Zoom, with RingCentral, or any of those collaboration platforms that we capture today is really crucial. And that link with TeamsLink, so that is really crucial to having a platform and a solution that's really easy to deploy for the end customer. So we are native in the cloud. We are the leading unified call recording platform globally. We've got points of presence all over the world, across the UK, Europe. I think there's some in South Africa, the US, and Asia Pacific as well. So we are truly global. Really easy to deploy solutions. So with a few clicks, we can deploy a customer account, and with a few more clicks, you can then provision Microsoft Teams users. So it is a really, really simple solution, and that is the key message, or one of the key messages with Dubba, is that it is a very, very simple platform, not only to use, but also to deploy. So the voice of the network, being integrated into the network, obviously means that we are there from day one. Customers turn off or turn on as they wish. And to give you some context on Dubba, so we were founded in 2011. We are listed on the ASX in Australia, so we're a public company. We recently went out to market as recent as last week, should I say, to raise some capital. So we were very fortunate to raise $110 million. We've got 142 million in the bank now. So there is a whole host of investment going on with Dubba that really underpins the message and the growth of the platform for our customers. I think the 105 employees figure is fairly old now. I think we've gone past 150 maybe in the last few months. So I think that needs updating. But yeah, around 150 employees, I think. We're based, head office is in Melbourne, in Australia. We've got regional offices, London, we've got presence in the US. So we are all over the globe. Native to the cloud, as I said, and a leader in doing so. So we are born in the cloud, which is really key. Other voice recording vendors have the challenges of moving from an on-premise solution to a cloud solution, which is not an insignificant task. We've seen massive growth, not only just in the share price, which you can go and see for yourself, but in terms of seats. I think we're now subscribed to over 420,000 endpoints globally. We work with more than 200 service providers globally, people like BT, AT&T, Vodafone, O2. So there are some really big names that we work with. We record billions of minutes each year for our customers. We integrate with leading industry AI tools. A couple of those are IBM Watson. So IBM Watson is the IBM product, which is their AI engine, effectively, or AI bot. We integrate with the AI bot for a number of things, which you'll see as we go through the presentation, and Patrick will take you through the demonstration as well. And API connections. So we have a truly open strategy around the API. The data is accessible by our customers, and that could be into and out of Dubba. So you could potentially annotate additional information into Dubba, or you could extract information out. You can map that data into your Salesforce instance, or another CRM tool, or Tableau, another BI tool. And it really is flexible in terms of what you want to do with the data. So the world changed. So why would people want to capture voice data? Well, at the moment, people are storing emails, they're storing transactional data, they're storing CRM notes, lots of data and communications being captured with customers. But as we've seen in some of the statistics, around 10 to 30% maybe of conversations are being captured. Now, what's happening to the other 70 to 90%? If you're not capturing it, it's going to waste. As soon as the phone is put down, the information is lost. And conversations with the customers are arguably the most valuable across the entire organization. If you're not capturing them, you don't know what's going on, you can't manage what's going on, and you can't improve what's going on. So from driving differentiation across customer experience or employee experience, to compliance with regulations such as MiFID II, GDPR, Dodd-Frank, and other global and regional regulations, to providing evidence, so case management, blue light services, or whatever they may be. Crucial conversations, if you're not recording, are being lost. And that could be, as I say, revenue loss, customer compliance intelligence, working from anywhere, so WFA, operating in a multi-endpoint world. So most organizations consume more than one telephony service. It might be an on-premise phone system, it might be a collaboration tool such as Microsoft Teams, or there may be some other tools as well. So Dubba, with our integrations, really help customers to capture conversations wherever they're happening across the enterprise and across the world. And a drive to data. few years ago, I was in a customer meeting, and a customer said to me, it was a finance broker in the city. He said, data is going to be the new crude oil. And it really feels like that now. As cliche as that saying might be, data really is key. If you're not capturing data about what's going on within your organization, there's value being lost. So being able to capture all of the voice data from across the entire enterprise, from any endpoint, from any of the integrations and platforms that you're using, is really valuable. And some of the AI integrations that we can show you today will really prove that value and give you some idea of how you can use that data. So voice is the largest untapped source of data and insights. I think I've covered that. But in terms of why is voice the largest untapped source, and why is it most valuable? Well, flat data such as transactional data or CRM notes is exactly that. It's flat. There's no emotion, there's no sentiment, there's no intent, there's no intonation. All of that is lost, and even emotion. So as we move forward with developments of the platform, emotion detection and emotion analysis is something that's really interesting to organizations, so you can pinpoint your most unhappy customers. But using the tools we've got today with sentiment and tone, we can analyze conversations, the context of a conversation once we've transcribed the call, and we can provide indications on whether that's a good call, a bad call, whether the customer's happy, whether the customer's not, whether it was a positive outcome, whether it was a negative outcome. So there's an awful lot of insight in that data that you can extract from day one with the Dubba platform. So I guess today, where are we? So the majority of our interactions that are voice are lost the moment the conversation ends. Legacy call recording isn't the best platform, I guess, really for expanding into multiple integrations, into expanding into collaboration tools such as Microsoft Teams and Zoom and other collaboration tools. And that really proves as a challenge. So it's hard then to meet regulatory requirements and expectations of the regulators. It's hard to extract the data across the enterprise. You create data silos across the enterprise, and that's ultimately quite difficult with some of the legacy recording vendors to get out. Productivity and efficiency gain. So if you're struggling to get the data out, you can't benefit from the data that you're capturing, and that ultimately limits you monetizing the value of connections and the differentiation of things like customer experience and employee engagement. So act now. I guess now is the time with Wavenet and Dubba to explore how we can support you. Every conversation across the entire organization can be turned into actionable insights using Dubba. We've got things like AI for control, insights and automation. So when you start transcribing data and you can action that data, you can start to feed that in with APIs and AI and machine learning across the top of that to really start to automate some of the processes internally. It helps you to know your customer. So the know your customer or KYC strategy is a really big buzz strategy at the moment. And that ultimately helps you to drive revenue, customer and people intelligence across the organization. So not all call recording is the same. We've touched a lot on how Dubba is native to the cloud. I guess some of the challenges around legacy call recording are things like in-life upgrades, end-of-life policies, support and maintenance, which can be a big challenge for some legacy call recording vendors. Weak AI, intelligence and automation capabilities, albeit a lot of them do have API capabilities, but it's not an on-premise solution is not really designed to be integrated into the cloud around security and other really important things for most organizations. It's typically quite expensive and requires some equipment on site, whether that be VMware or physical tin. And it's also then creating siloed data across the organization. So it can be really challenging and create a lot of issues. But why that changes with Dubba? So because we're native in the cloud, everything is controlled from a central point. We look after upgrades. They're invisible to the customer. The support story at Dubba is absolutely phenomenal. I come from a legacy recording vendor, and some of the challenges around support were at times quite bad. I think that the support journey and the support story at Dubba is great. There are very few tickets, and that central cloud management really helps us to design a product, roll a product out, and support a product really, really well. As well, on top of that, so secure enterprise grade security, we deploy in Amazon Web Services globally. So we piggyback off, I guess, off the back of their security and their policies that they deploy. It's a web app, so it's completely agnostic to any browser. So you can access it from a Mac, you can access it from a Windows PC. We're really flexible around access. And it gives you complete control of your data. Voice AI built into the cloud, so you don't have to worry about integrating any third-party systems. It's all done for you. It's a switch on, switch off. We do things such as keyword analytics and surveillance, so keyword spotting. One of the really cool features around the surveillance is you can send a summary report to the supervisor at the end of the day when certain things have been said, or if it meets a certain criteria, it can immediately notify the supervisor or the compliance manager of that word or phrase being said, which I think is a really useful feature. It allows you to visualize call data, so you can merge that call data with geographical data. So if your marketing team is running a campaign, you can take the information that we capture, so the sentiment that we capture and the numbers that are calling in, and map that against the area codes within regions. So you can see who's calling in, where your marketing's most effective, where it's least effective, and really start to build an ROI for the marketing team. And that's just one use case, I guess. It helps with investigations, so the surveillance aspect allows you to really interrogate the data, really get exactly what you're looking for, whether that be with keyword searching or searching on a time and a date of a call, which underpins regulatory and compliance reporting to the regulators. I think GDPR is you have to notify within 72 hours, so pulling off data for anything that you might have to send to them can happen quite easily with the export of the system, and similarly for MiFID II. So you can build shares of customer calls or agent calls and send those calls to specific people outside of the organization using a link where they access a browser, so you don't have to download and extract that call from your system. And then our APIs, so as I've already mentioned, full open API gives you control of the data within the platform, and that helps you to connect out of the platform as well into some of the other tools that a business is using. So this is a use case. I think we're nearly at the end of the slide. You'll probably be glad to hear, and I can stop waffling on. But this is a recent case study from one of our customers. So one of the managers, Lucy, there worked with us to help us understand why Dubba was really important to their organisation. And I won't read the slide verbatim, but some of the key points around here: we help them to solve dispute resolution. So dispute resolution around prices being agreed on the phone, and then the agent or the receptionist was able to go back and check exactly what was agreed on the phone. Now, I mean, the customer's always right, as they say, and a lot of the times the customer has to be right. Sometimes the customer isn't right, but having the evidence there to prove that the customer isn't right is really, really important, and that's saved them thousands and thousands of dollars. Improved customer experience, so being able to record conversations allows you to then look back and manage the skill set that the agents and the staff have, and if there are any skill gaps, it allows you to identify those and train those staff members to bring their skill set up and ultimately give customers a better experience. And affordable, so I guess our solution is a cost per user per month. It really is scalable, and that cost per user per month is a linear cost. So if it's affordable for one user, it's affordable across the organisation for all of the users effectively. And that's the case study. So we can send these slides around should we need to. If you've got any questions, please direct them to the Wavenet account manager or whoever you are dealing with at Wavenet. And now I will hand over to Patrick to complete the product demonstration.
All right, so hopefully my screen is being shared and you can see the Dubba portal for all of its glory in front of you. So let's have a little test drive through how things look and feel, and then I'll sort of show a little bit of a reporting example about what we can get out of the data that's there, and look at how it's modeled and can provide some pretty good value for not only the compliance and regulatory reasons, but other areas within different verticals and parts of the business. So logged into the portal here. It's fairly straightforward to operate from a media player perspective. So if you can see the recordings that you're after, initially I'm logged in, so this little top left button here gives me visibility to all the recordings that I can see. I can drop that down as a little quick filter per se, and I can change it to just my own specific recordings, which might be what a standard user sees when they log in for the first time. An admin can make that a bit more granular. You can put users into different groups like I have here. So I can click on my compliance group, and then you can have different permissions and create structures. You might have someone who can listen to various recordings of other team members, but can't necessarily have their recordings contributed, or vice versa, those things as such. So you can then locate things either on the display, a couple of other quick filter items. Obviously we have search available, so you can search within those particular areas, different filter options, query, and at this point it's going to be sort of things like usernames, phone numbers, any additional metadata that might be there, date ranges, and also any of the manual tags and things like that. As we can see, we've got a couple here, like put in as complaint, teams, cancellation, etc. So any of those components can be used as a query, as well as what you'd expect from a date range type search. So finding something you're after and then playing it back is as simple as hitting the play button. It'll fetch a recording and then start playing it back through your browser. As such, we store everything from the platform at this particular point in time. We use AWS globally, so for data sovereignty reasons, we deploy a new platform in each region that we operate in. So I think, as Matt said before, we've got the UK, Europe, US, Australia, Singapore. There's another couple at the moment. And then depending on how we're integrating to, sort of the front end changes. So for Microsoft Teams, for instance, we've got some recording bots deployed in Microsoft Azure, also part of being compliant and certified with Microsoft for that. So then they're essentially our capture devices. You run through a very brief sort of PowerShell script series for that to connect. That creates a recording policy, puts the users in it, allows us to basically then connect our bots to Microsoft's media servers where all the audio, video, etc. will traverse. And then when a meeting's established, we'll get streams of the participants captured by our bots. And then we go through a process and load that into our AWS infrastructure where everything else lives. So really good reasons for that is obviously cloud flexibility and feature sets. So with Amazon, for instance, the S3 storage facilities that they offer have incredible durability. Their rating is 11 nines of durability. So your likelihood of losing a file is something like 1 in 10 billion in 10 billion in 10 billion, things to that effect. You use their availability zones, all of their redundancy features, etc. And one of the other benefits of that is speed of access. So whether this recording is dated from October, but because it's also part of our product offers unlimited audio storage, if you've got legacy data pulled in, or you've been a Dubba customer for since day one, 10 years, any of your recordings will be fetched, played back, and accessible at the same speed as what I just did there. So it's a really great aspect from a performance side of things as well. We don't do the traditional notion of archiving, pushing stuff off elsewhere, where if you did need it, it's going to take you days to find the disk or whatever it might be. It's all there for you to consume and get available. And then as we go through the demo, even with legacy recordings, if you've got customers with things in, Redbox, Nice, Variant, any other solution that you can bring into Dubba, they can also have AI applied to them. So with things like, as Matt said, getting the transcripts, sentiment, tone analysis, all the data that would then be available on what's happening inside the calls is all then available as well. So just continuing the use case here, we've got a couple of little just shuttle control buttons, changing speeds, etc. If I go back to the main one, because we've got a good meeting example there to click on the information, we'll get some data on meeting participants, external call IDs. So as we can see here, Nick was in a meeting. If I click the recording information button, in this case, we've got who the parties, who the additional people were, the external call ID, things to that effect. When we go to metadata, this gives us just a bit of information from the, these are the key components Dubba uses to allocate recordings and bits, tells us our service provider. In this case, this is a Zoom example, and it all gets distributed that way. So in addition to, and Teams is very similar, and WebEx and what have you. So those bits and pieces come in. Those pieces can be used as metadata for searching as well. Tags, these can be added manually, as I said before. It's free text. They can be done on a call-by-call basis. They can be used in bulk. So we've got a little selector tool here on the right-hand side. Pick a few if you need to. Use this, and you can select what you want to do with them. So those features are available there. Certain things are also configurable at the account level. So for argument's sake, for regulatory reasons, you may not want people deleting or even downloading files. So we can turn that off. Legal hold's another feature that's available for litigation purposes. So if we click on the little shield here, for instance, we can put something into legal hold, puts it into what's known as a worm state. So it's only going to be able to read from it, write once, read many, and it cannot be deleted. So obviously a good reason to have the are you sure you want to do this prompt pop up, but ultimately, if you've going through a process where you need to make sure something cannot be removed from deleting it manually, API, retention, etc., then legal hold is there to do that. And moving on from there, so then we've got our, I'll just jump back to search. So that's sort of the basic bits and pieces about getting a recording into Dubba, some of the features from the portal at this stage. So what I want to do now is sort of the product sold generally is kind of two packages, and then there's a few add-ons, etc. The base product is now called Dubba Teams, which in a sense is using the traditional meaning of teams, so a team of people, what have you. And then we have Dubba Premier, which is then all of the Dubba Teams features plus AI, sentiment, tone, etc. So I want to just clarify that because the Teams name can be a bit misleading at the moment with different products. So that is in the more traditional notional sense of the word. So if I run a new query here, searching for the word invisible. Now what I'm doing here is having a look through. As you can see, I've got a few results back. Not completely obvious why I do. It doesn't match any of my names, phone numbers, anything to that effect. And the reason I mention the packages at this point is because this now shows the sort of power of our AI features. So with sentiment, tone, transcription enabled, the search capability then extends not across just the metadata or tags or calling information or participants. We now start digging into the transcript. So if I jump into my transcription here, have a look at my first line, hello, invisible solutions. So your keyword searching is now infinitely more powerful. Instead of just going to look for things that maybe someone's already tagged or you've been notified of, you can now find things that are actually being said in the transcript without having to constantly go and find things, go listening for them. So as we jump in, we've essentially got the same media player at the top, sentiment rating at the next section down. This is an overall conversation sentiment. So was this conversation good, bad, or negative? And this is done on all of our tone and sentiment is done on the transcript. So we're taking the recording, we're getting a speech to text output. Transcript is then being analyzed for things like word proximity, general conversational linguistics, and then the overall sentiment is being rated by the AI engine to then ascertain, again, the quality of this conversation. From our research, most conversations do end up in the neutral bucket, and then we have facilities to flag alerts and notifications based on negative sentiment or positive. Next section down here is to do with the emotion and tone indicators. In this case, it's not the entire document, but what it's doing is, well, it is the entire document, but it's breaking it down to sentence by sentence structure. So we're going through, this line here, hello, hope I can help. How would that be rated from a tone is there some tone in that? Is there not? If there is, what are the different indicators for that? And then scoring appropriately. Some sentences could convey multiples in which the strongest is applied, and we're getting an overall rating here. So quite useful on a call-by-call basis. It's easy to pick on negative things. So, if fear showed up in a call, maybe you want to flag a notification on that and know about it. But it's really interesting to see, also from your staffing point of view, who's doing what, who's having conversations with customers with a lot of joy in their, voices. Are you having new people showing more tentative behavior and building the confidence over time? Really quite interesting to look at it here on a case-by-case basis from a conversation, and then also, which also relates to another slide I'll show in a little bit, about overall aggregate information. And then we get into the transcript. So this is obviously the body of the conversation that's gone on. We have sentiment here rated as well on a sentence-by-sentence basis. And little bits that are useful here in reflection to just kind of show the operation of this. Green, positive sentiment in this sentence. The word hope, that's a pretty positive word. So we're getting something good there. Minus 0.9 is about as bad as it gets. And we have the word problems. We have the word cancel. That's quite negative. So as it goes through, you could sort of see how that's structured out. Now, one of the reasons for this is as well is that ultimately not that many customers are going to sit here and read transcripts. But if you've got this sentiment showing, you could jump to a problem part and go, oh, okay, this is all quite bad here. Let's see what's going on. And then we also offer the facility here that you click on the word of the transcript, it opens the player and jumps straight to that part of the conversation. As such. So this is all really good, but ultimately we still need to go looking for things. Whereas where our notifications comes in, which is under our accounts here, if I jump across to my AI tab, notifications, and we have quite a few of those configured and set up in here. I'll go to one of my favorite ones because it's a bit more relevant to what we'll talk about shortly. In this case, we're dealing with financial services, and we've got a notification here we've called trading breach, because from our experience, we obviously know with compliance in the financial services industry, particularly around traders, they're not allowed to give financial advice. So they shouldn't be telling you to buy Dubba shares, even if we think they're good value. We definitely don't want you to sell them, but call me offline, any of these sorts of things. So what's happening here is that we've got AI switched on, we're getting transcripts, and then the notifications are being processed as soon as a transcript is available, which essentially happens straight after we've got the call. Transcript processing time takes about 25 to 30% the duration of the call. So, if they're short, snappy, then it's quite quick. If it's a 30-minute conversation, that might take a few minutes to process. But as soon as we get that, it runs through here, and then we can start taking action. So instead of, people having to log in and start listening to calls, or even, with AI going and hunting for keywords, we can now be building up all of these great samples and use cases of, either good, bad, otherwise actions that are happening within the business, so that you can then be alerted to that happening as they're happening, or as Matt said earlier, in summary at the end of the day, maybe depending on the severity or what it is or what the impact on your business is. So, in this particular case, it's mostly configured for just keywords. So I want to know when these things are said in a conversation period across everything that I have access to. However, I could use this in combination with other factors that we have here. So it can be based on a particular user. If you've got some people that I don't know, if it's a new person and you want to make sure they're saying the right thing on the phone, and you just want to know when they're making calls. If it's an experienced person, someone who, might be causing some issues, anything like that, any of that sort of information, you can plug in and have an alert configured based on that. Other participants can be phone numbers, you plug in key accounts. If you've got high wealth customers or something like that in a banking situation, maybe you want to know when people are talking to them. Maybe you want to know when a specific user is talking to them. If Bob is causing trouble, and you don't want him calling certain people, and you get an alert based on that, you can maybe take action straight away. It can be used for, cancellation type requests, competitors, any of this sort of information now that can come up. Another good one that we actually get from a banking customer is they're running the alerts based on just customers having engagement with their contact center, in that case in a normal sense, just having a conversation, talking about their credit card. And the customer, if they say they're going on holiday or they're looking at maybe traveling, then they're hunting for those keywords and then pushing out marketing material based on travel insurance. So there's some really inventive and interesting ways that customers are using this kind of facility to add value around other parts of their organization as well. As I mentioned before, you can run them on sentiment, positive, negative calls. Maybe you want to be knowing about that, and the emotional states as well. And as I mentioned before, we can flag this. At the moment, it can be done on email alerts, so either daily or immediate. So in immediate, again, as I said, based on when the transcript's processed, we can fire this off straight away. And the other facility we have is with REST. So using an API, you can connect this into a CRM of some sorts, for instance. So if this was an alert based on contract cancellations or someone saying cancel or what have you, then you could have that plugged into send an alert straight into your CRM's retention queue, and then have someone actioning that as quickly as they can to try and turn that situation around, for argument's sake. So this starts really getting proactive on what's happening with the calls. Instead of having to go finding that needle in the haystack, you're getting an avalanche of needles sent at you in a more positive sounding way than that did. So as an example here, so what we're doing is a bit of data mining. We're pulling some information out. This was a use case that was done for a US customer the year before last. But it's a really good one because it shows some advantages across the different parts of their business. So we're looking at all the information that was purely based on transcript. So when we're talking about product types here, etc., all of this is identified keywords within a transcript, and then pulling out, well, how often was that said, and then some of the conversion rates that they were going for. So in this particular instance, this company had launched a credit card marketing campaign, new product in certain regions in the US, and we're quite interested to know, what was happening in those phone calls when they when people were ringing in, and whether or not that had any effect, and what the measure of impact on that was. So in this particular instance, we were able to demonstrate just from, again, the transcripts alone, that of the inquiries that people were calling in about, there was quite a high percentage of sales conversion rate for this particular campaign when people were mentioning the products on the phone. As you can see here, credit card was the most spoken product name, asked about source, where that was coming from, TV again, the biggest contributor, and using some geolocation from phone numbers where to sort of like drill that down into where some of these calls were coming from. But what this was able to prove to this organization, they were capturing their calls because they're legally required to, but at the same time, with all this data, they could then provide that back to their marketing department and show how successful and how impactful that their TV campaign was, what the conversion rates were, and really get some good intel on that to help them refine and move that forward and improve that for the next time around. And across the same period, we've got a bit more of the sentiment and tone parts here on those conversations. And one thing that's really interesting here to kind of highlight, again, from not necessarily a compliance perspective, but just how the sentiment and tone on these calls can translate into real business impact. We have a flood of calls here on the 9th of October, certainly more than any other day. And as you can see, a big chunk of negativity there. So digging into that a little bit. Obviously, our sentiment on this side is going to be all red because that's, of course, what it is. The tones coming across in those conversations, lots of sadness, lots of anger, and then translating that, because we're trying to pick out keywords that were said, it clearly wasn't any of these typical banking things. This has all fallen into the other umbrella. And then upon digging a bit deeper, the main reason for these calls was actually an internet banking outage on the particular day, thus driving, quite significant customer frustration and negativity about trying to resolve that. So in this case, again, really useful set of information there on what's happening as calls are coming in, purely based off, the AI Dubba was able to dig into on the phone calls. And essentially that sort of covers the portal, the use cases, some of the really great information that you can get out of it. And I think some of the real good benefits of AI and being able to, enhance the knowledge of what's going on in those phone calls. And back to you, Barry, I think.
Brilliant. Thank you, Patrick. Hopefully everybody there kind of can see the power of what Dubba can bring, not only from just the standard call recording side of things and stuff, but how you can translate that into actionable technology and use cases. What we found as well is looking with TeamsLink, by working with Dubba and TeamsLink, we've got this ability to work from anywhere. You can use any device. So if you're running Teams on your mobile phone or your iPad or your desktop, with our TeamsLink connection, giving you that connection to the outside world, to the PSTN and Dubba, you can be in this compliance regulatory arrangement, but also you can use call recording to add value to the business. It's not there just as a cost. It's how do we use this to make actionable intelligence, and that stuff on the banking there, I think, is great. And we've got many use cases as well where customers have found sort of niche ways of working around that. The other thing to say as well is when Patrick was talking, there's quite a lot of technicalities in the background about bots and connecting up to Azure and all that sort of stuff. The beauty of our solution with Dubba is we take away all that complexity. We do that. We manage all that. We hide that in the background. So from a customer perspective, it's turn it on, away you go, and start to use it. So hopefully you've seen some of the power there. It's been great looking at that. We've actually got a couple of questions, so I'm going to open it up for like the last few minutes. So the first question that came in was, guys, what's the benefit of using Dubba versus the out-of-the-box MS Teams recording solution? So yeah, shall I throw that out there, Matt? Are you still there, Matt?
Yeah, just come off mute, Barry. So there are a number of benefits. So I guess the two types of recording, one is convenience recording, which is what you've just spoken about there, the Microsoft offering of recording, and one is compliance recording for Microsoft Teams. So with the first, the convenience recording, that is invoked by the agent. You can't control really by any policies. The data is stored where the agent wants it to be, so the retention of it is then controlled by the agent, so it's not controlled by the organization. So it doesn't really provide organizations with what they need. You then obviously got any API challenges, you've got data in a raw format, in a WAV format, or whatever the format might be if you've got video. So you're really restricted in terms of what you can do. With compliance recording for Microsoft Teams, it allows you as an organization to set policies to record certain calls, to introduce messages. So the recorded messages in an event that tells the participants that the conversation or the call or the video chat is being recorded. And there are regulations, broad regulations in the UK and across America that I am aware of, that you need to notify somebody if you're recording the call. So I think that there are a lot of differences, I guess, and some of the things like AI, you're not going to have AI capability or transcription capability built into convenience recording, but you can have that built in from day one with compliance recording. So I think those are the clear differences, I would say, Barry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. We've seen people say the same thing, and actually when they start to use Dubba, they suddenly start to see the power of it and the advantages. So yeah. So another question that's coming in is how accurate is the transcription provided by Dubba?
So transcription accuracy is built up of a number of things. So the elocution, the pronunciation, accents, background noise, quality of audio, whether the person's had their coffee in the morning, potentially. Lots of different things will affect the quality of transcription. We don't have a specific figure, but you can expect kind of 80% upwards typically with Microsoft Teams audio, and that is all based on the attributes that I said, the variables that I said, and even things like network connection, and there's lots of different things in there that can really affect it. But in a real world scenario, you could expect sort of 80% upwards, really.
Thanks for that. And also, what are the recording storage options that we have? I know, Wavenet with TeamsLink, we've got the Dub AI, the premium service, which is unlimited, but we've also go down to the 30 days. Is there anything else that you guys do around recording storage?
So I'm not sure it's released yet, and Patrick, keep me honest here. I think we are working on an integration out of Dubba for storage if customers want to utilize their own storage stack. So I think that's roadmapped at the moment, Barry, but that would effectively allow customers to use their own cloud storage, their own on-premise storage, or whatever storage that they've got, if they've got a SAN or, you know, a NAS location that they use. Is that fair to say, Patrick?
Yeah, so I mean, at the moment, it's basically stored within Dubba. Customers are more than capable of using our APIs to, if they want to extract everything, they certainly can do that. We're all about data portability and no lock-ins and all that sort of thing. For BYO storage, that's certainly something that's being discussed. It does come up more and more. So it's something where we are looking into at this stage. So yeah, basically what Matt said.
Yeah, cool. And just to reiterate on that, on TeamsLink, we've got a 30-day storage option sitting here, and all the way up to our unlimited storage, which is the 7-year sort of compliance level, and we can go beyond that. So it's very flexible in terms of the storage that we've got. But as the guys say, there are options to be able to export that out if you want to. But we're keeping everything as much as we can within Dubba, because obviously you've got all that great AI functionality over the top. I've got one last question, and we're just about on time. So will you be able to manage what users are enabled for Dubba call recording in the TeamsLink admin portal? So that's probably one for me, guys. The answer is yes. We've done huge amounts of work with Dubba to bring this into a single portal, single look and feel. You can turn users on, turn users off. You still go into that fantastic Dubba portal to manage the recordings. So you still go in there to look at the AI and the transcription and set all your settings in there. But we have built that integration in so that when we add users in, you don't have to do any PowerShell scripting or anything like that in the background. It's a question of adding those users in. So we're really pleased with it and love the way that this partnership has worked. So that is 11:59. I don't think I've ever cut a webinar off so tight on the on time. If you've got any more questions about TeamsLink or Dubba or anything in general about that, on the screen we've got the contact details. If you email sales@wavenetuk.com or ring the number. We'd be more than happy to give you demonstrations. We run proof of concepts where there are questions around that, and we can also work very closely in terms of looking at the particular requirements that you have. There's no other questions in the chat, so I'd just like to say a big thank you to Matt and to Patrick for being here today, and hopefully we look forward to hearing from you all in the future. So thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all. Cheers.